Hello and welcome to the EFM Health Club podcast for another week. My name is Justin Waring. I'll be your host, and alongside me is Jason Jesusius and Wade Brady. How are you guys?
Good, Justin.
Hi, Justin. Hi, Jason.
How are you, mate?
Very well. We are back full of energy this week. We've set our New Year's resolutions from last week, and we are set and ready to fill your minds full of health and well-being and fitness information. We have a bit of a special episode today. We have been getting a fair few questions via the different social medias, different podcast players, and we thought we'd go through some of the questions today. So a bit of a recap of our first what have we done? 14, 15 different episodes. So as far as I can tell, both of our fans have sent us in a couple of questions, and we're going to go through those questions today. That's probably not fair. I'm probably underselling it.
Rough,
we have
mate. That's rough.
It is rough.
My family listens, and there's more than two.
There's a couple of comments on each YouTube episode where people have asked us to do it without our shirts on. That's not happening. I can tell you that.
Really?
And a couple of more untoward things beyond that.
Like the naked news.
Yeah. So I know that will be happening.
We want ratings to go up, mate.
Yeah. And a couple of very harsh things about the Peter Road episode as well on Pete. So we're going to hide that from the ex-AFL champion. So we'll get into it. We cover off on, there are a fair few questions here that I've tried to kind of filter down a little bit, some of the more interesting ones, and we'll go around trying to answer the questions as closely as we can. We might branch off into some other topics, but we'll see how we go. So different episode for us. We're kind of replying to the things that people want to hear from us rather than us kind of spitting out as much information that's going to be helpful as we can. All right, so first of all, looking at my list here, I'm going to start with one from our running episode. So I know a lot of people weren't who aren't runners may have switched off that one, but Lucy, who's from Canada. So look, I'm always a bit surprised by where people are listening from. So Lucy's from Canada. She said, I just started running to train for the local 10-kilometer race. I've done a 5-kilometer, but I get bored halfway through my runs. Do you have any tips to make running more enjoyable so that I stick with it? So Jace, you're a bit of a runner, more than Wade. What advice do you have?
So to make it more enjoyable, I guess the hard thing about that is knowing what makes a person tick. But I guess a few suggestions off the top of my head is if you prearrange, if you take headphones or AirPods or whatever your preferred listening device is, having a podcast queued up. I know a good one. EFM Health Club podcast is a good one to listen to. So queuing up a podcast or a playlist that gets you motivated, something that makes you happy, something upbeat and energetic. Sometimes it might be planning a new route. So you're, all right, I'm not going to do my usual route today. I'm going to drive 5 kilometers down the road, and I'm going to take in something near the water or something in a park out in nature.
Just to build on that a little bit, I did a lot of running before my leg issues, like cross country at school. That was probably back before headphones, maybe, but I remember getting into a good rhythm with the breathing. I remember when we were doing all our cross country training. For me, that when you just got into this beautiful pattern of breathing and embracing the flow, I remember that being a thing. I've heard people with the music stuff, just to build on that, is you could spend hours stuffing around with the playlist, but put some of your more pump up songs. You work out where you know where you start to struggle. You can sort of put some more amping songs in there. And the other one I'd probably say is, and I said it to my wife yesterday, who went for a jog last night. I said just mind the games. So just building again on what Jace said, use landmarks, which you can call it fartlek training. There is a name for it, but rather than just being on the watch and going minute easier, minute harder, or whatever, is picking out a landmark and say, I'm going to push it to the big gum tree and then back it off again. You just make it up as you go along, but it's distraction. It's some little mind games you're adding in, and they can be really powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely more a mental barrier, like crashing through. She's got to try and crash through a barrier here. Like she's got a certain limit, and she may not be bored. She just may be buggered. So varying the training up a little bit, so that your general level so that the fitness level continues to get stronger. The legs might be wanting to give up. You go, oh, your legs are tired, but your brain's going, yeah, I've had enough of this. I don't really want to. So finding a way, it's probably more of a mental barrier. Boredom's a mental barrier. It's probably maybe physical that you're trying to find an excuse for. Simply maybe if you get bored halfway, just run in one direction so that you have to run back. Like if you're going to run 8Ks to try and get up to 10, if you run 4 kilometers from home in one direction, you're going to have to get back somehow, short of catching a taxi. So
if you're goal oriented as well, if you've got, let's say you've got 4 or 5 different types of runs that you do, if you go, right, I'm cycling back to that run, but I'm going to try and do that one better than what I did last time. So if you're just running for time, that can be boring as anything. Like if there's no actual goal attached to it, or there's not a firm goal attached to it. But if you're saying, hey, yes, I want to run 6Ks today, but last time I did it in 38 minutes. Well, today I want to try and do it in 37 and a half.
Ways to trick the brain. So
yeah,
good. I hope that answers your question, Lucy. Hopefully some of those little ideas get you over. Good luck with the 10-kilometer run. I'm not sure when that's on. It doesn't mention it. The next one's from Rachel. She's down from your way, guys, Adelaide. She's 51 years old and probably looking at what we spoke to Sarah about a few weeks or just before Christmas. I've never touched weights in my life. Everyone says strength training is crucial at my age, but I'm worried about getting injured. Where do I begin?
Get someone to help you, whether it be a trainer or a friend that hopefully knows what they're doing. Online, there's lots of options, but get help from someone. But to reassure you, just start light, and there's no. When I get people starting with me, I've got on the back of my timetable what's important when you start and what's not. And on my what's important list, I've only got 2 things. And then on my what's not important, I've got about 8 to 10 things. And there are a lot of things that people often worry about at the start. So the 2 things that I have that you really only need to get right is consistency and technique. And then in that list of things don't worry about is how heavy you lift, how quick you do it, whether you finish it all that stuff. That takes care of itself after. Just be aware that and this is what it's January and I've got a few new people around the club, and I'm reassuring them that there's always going to be a little bit of there's some growing pains, and we, even if under the guidance of someone with lots of experience, we're not always going to get it perfectly right, and you might be sorer the next day than what we assumed you would be, but it's growing pains, okay? And you speak to more people that do this, and that everyone can remember when they started, I think, and they'll reassure you that, those first 2 weeks, they were tough. I was quite sore, but then they'll follow it up with, because I do it all the time in the club, but stick at it because it gets better and it just keeps getting easier. So that'd be my 2 bobs worth.
Yeah.
Can I add in? I'm going to challenge the question. One of the things that was at the end of the question was, I'm worried about getting injured from lifting weights. If I'd pose the question, or the statement, I'd be more worried about getting injured from not lifting weights. Because if you don't do any strength training, we're either getting stronger or we're getting weaker, one or the other, right? So if you're getting weaker, your muscles are getting weaker, your joints are getting weaker, your bones are getting less dense. And as a female at 51, if you haven't reached the stage of life yet where your body's changing, perimenopause, I believe we were talking about with Sarah a couple of weeks ago, going into menopause. This is a stage of life where retaining bone density becomes more challenging, retaining muscle becomes more challenging. So taking up a strength program, yes, technique is very important, and my advice would be to use either a personal trainer or some kind of fitness coach with the qualifications to show you how to do things the right way. But the bigger risk is doing nothing, because that's a fast track to more aches, more pains, less mobility. That's what my experience leads me.
There is a name for it. It's called sarcopenia.
Yes.
In 2019, it was actually classed as a disease, and I've spoken to a couple of GPs in the club about this, and I said, so really, from my understanding, and I could easily be wrong, but it's the only disease you are on track to get. Everyone's on track to get it unless they're doing something about it and actively strength training. So that's really interesting. I don't know of any other diseases that you are going to get unless you take these steps and these measures. But sarcopenia, it's just losing condition, and it starts from about 40, and then it really accelerates around 60. And and all my learnings are the earlier you start, like it's never too late, but if you're younger than 40 or around 40, they say it's if you've got the choice, you're best to start in your 40s, because that's going to best set you up in the future. But don't get me wrong, I've seen people start, I think the latest I've seen someone start was like mid 70s, early 70s, and their strength, not tripled, probably 8x,
I think for Rachel, sorry, Jess, one of the things probably underlying the question is maybe a little hesitancy just walking into a gym for the first time. Like everyone can think up the reasons as to why they probably shouldn't be going to the gym, why it's not for them, why exercise isn't for them, whatever. I might get injured. There's going to be people there that are looking themselves in mirrors and things like that. So there may be just an underlying hesitation as to not wanting to go because having not experienced it before.
Sorry. When people tell me they're injured, nearly every time they've done it at home. It's not in the gym. Yeah, just to put a sort of cherry on top.
So I'd suggest maybe, Rach, make sure you get into the gym. Find a gym that if you walk into a couple, just suss out a few and find out, maybe there might be a gym that fits your mental picture that you don't want to see. We'd hope that the AFM clubs are a little bit different to that. They're a little more welcoming, a little bit more open, a little less intimidating. Head in and get a little bit of help so that you can get the advice and the technique that will definitely limit, if not eliminate, your possibility of getting injured from not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. And if you haven't heard of people getting injured in a gym, you could almost guarantee that someone that's just gone at it and they're not sure what they're doing, or you would hope it wasn't under the eyes of a trainer, or else they should not be a trainer. People should not be getting injured lifting weights under the eyes of a qualified PT.
That's an interesting conversation, because I hear what you're saying. When injuries happen, injuries can happen as a result of the 51 years of doing things the wrong way. Then all of a sudden they start training and without being able to recognize it, it's too much too soon. Someone moves the wrong way, and you know, an injury can come about. It certainly shouldn't happen under the guidance of a trainer. That doesn't mean to say that it can't. So, you know,
well, but that's we're challenging the body, aren't you? And you have to challenge the body for change.
Yeah.
And the more you challenge, then the more like the closer you're getting, and the more the risk is increasing. But when you're starting, though, you shouldn't be. You don't have to really add much stimulus when you're starting. That's probably the safest part of your training when you're starting out and just learning the movements. When you actually become more advanced and you start getting really competitive within yourself, you're probably more likely to get injured there. There's an argument for that.
Yeah. So that, and this is where the value of a coach comes in, because if you have a good coach that can recognize when you're pushing too hard, recognize when you're trying to go up in your weights week after week, and you're trying to skip steps, a good coach will be able to see that and go, right, the person's name's Rachel that sent the question in. You're going ahead too fast here. You need to rein it back in, because otherwise this is where you're at risk. We've all had that member that does push a little bit too hard too quickly. I know we're kind of digressing here, but it is an interesting conversation.
Hopefully that wasn't too much information. Get help.
Yeah. Well, and off the back of that, I've got another question from Ben, who's been lifting weights for about 6 months, he said. Doesn't tell me where he's from. I see people at the gym using a weight belt when squatting. I'm not quite sure why they do it. Is it necessary? Or can I just skip that and not have one? He's also got another question about his hands hurt from lifting weight, so he might have little metal dumbbells in his gym. Should I get gloves? I don't see many people wearing them around the weights room. What do you guys reckon? So let's start with the weight belt for squatting. So we haven't really covered that before, but it's a little bit out of left field. So I guess this is a new area for us.
So my question would be, what's the purpose of the squat? What are we trying to achieve? What would you say we're trying to achieve, Wade, from a squat?
Just so when you have to do one in the backyard and you got to add a pot plant to it, you can do it easy and not worry about hurt yourself.
Yeah, so you can be strong. So that requires all links in the chain to be strong enough to handle that, right?
Yeah.
So throwing a belt on, why are we putting the belt on? What is that?
It's called ego lifting.
Right. So
you have a number that you saw someone on the internet get to, and you need to get to that number. There's a point where you're strong enough. Yeah.
So, but what you're doing is you're pushing the limit of your legs beyond what your core can handle, right? So this is really important. You're as strong as your weakest link. So the answer isn't to put a weight belt on. To me, the answer is to get your core stronger and take the progression of your squats at the rate that your core can handle, because otherwise your strength gets out of balance. You get far more strong in your legs than what your core can handle. To me, that's running a risk of an injury, because your body's getting out of balance, number one.
Yeah. And that's like the leg press, isn't it? When you lay down the leg press, you can get really strong legs, but your core's not improving. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always watched guys with a weights belt on. I've never actually quite understood the purpose of it. Sometimes I feel like a bit of a moron in a gym. Like if I go to a different gym and check things out, spy a little bit, whatever. I feel like a bit of a moron because I see people doing things that I don't quite understand, and the weight belt is on that list. In regards to the gloves, then if your fingers hurt, I'd wear them. If your fingers don't hurt, probably no point. It's probably, you might be a little self-conscious again about going, I don't want to be the only bloke in a gym wearing gloves because I would appear to have dainty little fingers.
Do what feels right.
Yeah, if your fingers hurt, put them on. That would be my advice.
What they think of you is none of your business.
Yeah.
You just quickly, on that point, your hands, like your body, can get conditioned, but you've got to be willing to cop the calluses. Like if you do it to deadlifts and chin ups, you'll end up with calluses. But just devil's advocate, or the other side of the coin for the belt, if someone's a competition lifter and that's their job to, okay, well, a weight belt, you can make a case for it, but when you think about it, there could be a use for a weight belt. And again, I'm not really familiar with this, but it can give you feedback if you're rounding your back, maybe. So if you're doing a deadlift and you can't see yourself properly in a mirror, because you can feel the weight. If it's physically something touching your back, it'll give you better biofeedback of whether you're rounding your back. So to try and make a case that's maybe a bit technical, there could be actually good uses for them, but
good one, mate. Yeah. All right, that's good. I hope that answers your question. All right, so the next one is around mindset. We've done a couple of podcasts on mindset. So we have a question from Emma, who's in Sweden. We actually have quite a few people listening in Scandinavia. Internet's an amazing thing. Hi, it's Emma. And every time I start a workout plan, I lose motivation after about 2 or 3 weeks. I've started again this year. How can I develop the mental toughness to keep going even when I'm tired? So, I mean, this is a nice treasure trove of information, Emma.
This might be the last question.
Yes, we'll
go
until tomorrow. So Emma, look, from me, in terms of mental toughness, I think you need to think about it as like a muscle that you're trying to develop too. Every day, we're developing. You can develop or potentially lose mental toughness. Going that kind of extra little step develops mental toughness day in, day out. It's very common for people to lose that motivation after 2 to 3 weeks. And there's a psychological basis for that, where your mind, when you start something new, is highly motivated. You find it very novel. Your energy levels are high. And we see it in the gym all the time from a new member. 2-3 weeks, people are really consistent. And mentally that makes sense, and energetic, even though they're using more energy than they have previously. Around that 3-week mark, the energy level drops because your brain doesn't find it novel anymore. It's now part of a routine. You know, as much as we kind of feel comforted by a routine, a lot, there's a part of your brain that wants to break out of routine and doesn't want to keep going back. You start to feel tired and you start to, for want of a better term, lose motivation, but your energy levels drop. And that usually lasts 1 to 2 weeks. If you can get through that and you've established now a habit, which is different to motivation, and it's almost like a different kind of mental structure. Once you've got through those kind of tough 2 weeks, your energy levels recover and you're on your way and you've got through the tough bit. Not that it won't dip again and you'll feel unenergetic at times, but establishing a habit through that little bit of, a decline in energy after that initial surge of the novel approach to the change in life, will see you carry on throughout. That's the general advice I give in this situation. You got any practical steps? Yep.
I think you've summed that up pretty well. I say basically the same thing, where yes, it's a novel thing, and then there's a window where it's not novel anymore, but you haven't developed a habit either, because it does take quite a while. I know when someone's in a habit. So I'd say if you're training every morning and then one morning just for the experiment. You decide, I'm not going to go to the gym today. I'm going to stay home. Now, if staying home feels weird, like, shit, I'm usually at the gym this time. This is, what do I do with myself? That is the sign that you're in a really strong habit, okay? And the other thing is with the results. So you're not going to get any results that you can really see that early. And I think if you could see results earlier, that would be another thing to keep the motivation going, to give you another boost of motivation. But that's another thing you can look forward to if you break through this wall. And as you say, it's really that 1 or 2 week period where you drop off, because the results you can see are just sort of past there a little bit. So just to build on what you say, hopefully you agree with that, Justin. Jason,
Yeah.
To that, Jace, anything?
Yeah, for me, process over results. So you've got a goal that you want to work towards, whether it's some version of a healthier life or a fitness level, or you want to lose weight, you want to get down to a certain number, whatever it is you decide you're shooting for. Once you've decided on that, you make a plan, and then the goal is no longer the goal. The goal is to execute the plan. The goal is to execute the process. So if that's 3 times a week, don't question that. Just do it. Not, oh, do I feel like it today? Or I don't know if I should go because I'm tired, or I had a good workout yesterday, maybe I'll just miss it. No, just go. Just show up, because consistency is key. We've talked about before how motivation comes and goes. It's not about motivation. It's about rocking up and getting the work done. If you can rock up consistently, if you just keep rocking up, because as you're getting that weight, it's about creating that habit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it, I'm losing motivation. It doesn't matter. Show up and do your workout.
And another thing you could do too, when someone gets to this period, if they change what they're consuming to understanding more about the benefits of training, that can only give you more reasons to go. Because I suppose if you're idle, you find reasons not to go. So try and educate yourself and give yourself more reasons to follow this through. That's just
including the reward of working out today is I feel good today. 10 minutes after the workout, for most people, within 10 minutes of the workout ending, they either feel good because they've got that exercise high, the endorphins have gotten around the body, you got some oxygen in, a clearer head, you're energized and ready for the day. A vast majority of the people I've trained over the years feel better after working out. That's number one. Number two is the guilt is gone. You don't feel guilty. I feel so much better. I'm glad I did that. No one's ever said, geez, I wish I slept in. They'll say, geez, I'm glad I did that. I feel better for having gone. I would have felt guilty if I didn't go. And that guilt builds, and then you feel less about yourself. So if you shouldn't I, unless there's a compelling reason that you physically can't go or you can't do your workout, just show up and do it, because you'll thank yourself afterwards and you'll feel better afterwards.
The hardest rep, Emma, is pushing the gym door open.
That's right.
The push, make sure you do a pull as well. So there's a couple of questions on resolutions. I think we probably covered that in that last little bit too. So they're very similar questions. I want to get to one on nutrition. This is Daniel. I've been hitting the gym hard to lose weight, but I don't know if I'm eating the right amount of protein. How do I figure out what's the best amount? So when we dive into nutrition, a lot of it is personalized for your amount of activity, and just thinking about protein on its own without the other macros gets a little bit tricky. In general, if you've got an app and you're looking and you're tracking your food, the right amount of protein, or in rough amounts generally, will be about 1.5 times your body weight.
So what you're getting at is 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, what you're saying, Justin, is if I weigh 80 kilos, I'm looking at about 120 grams of protein per day. and that's going to ballpark be on track. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So if you're, so to answer your question, Daniel, if you're just thinking, right, I need enough protein, and you're 80 kilos, yeah, 120 grams. So, and you'll need a tracker for that. So a MyFitnessPal or Chronometer or any one of a dozen like apps that you can use to track your calories. But that's not really the end of it. I mean, nutrition's a pretty complicated thing. And if you're thinking weight loss, you just said you're hitting the gym hard to lose weight. Overall calorie count, how many carbohydrates you're eating, as well, and carbohydrates and fats will factor into your weight loss. We're looking to do a couple of interesting pods coming up with some people to talk specifically about nutrition. We don't want to go out over our skis, in terms of nutrition, because it. I tend to think if you ever want to get into an argument with somebody, walk into a gym and talk to the blokes or girls in the weight room and say, I think you should do this many reps, this many sets, because it's the ideal way. And go on somewhere and go, this is what you should eat to lose weight. Because everyone's got an opinion. There are 1,000 studies. Things work differently for different people. So we don't want to get too much into the weeds. But if you're worried about nutrition, 1.5 grams per body weight per day. But then also start thinking about your carb and fat intake. Make sure you have a balanced diet. And if you're really, really struggling, a dietitian is perfect.
Yeah, I think that's the key point, Justin. I think general advice, I don't think you're going to go far wrong with what you've said as far as the 1.5 grams. However, every individual's case based on what your lifestyle is, how much exercise you're doing, what type of exercise you're doing, what your goals are. I think that's where a personalized approach is really important. My advice would be to speak to a dietitian or nutritionist and get them to take a closer look at a deeper dive for you, because I think you'll get specifically the answer that you're after.
Yeah. A couple of quick questions, a little bit maybe off topic now. Jenny's asked, what kind of music do you guys listen to while you're exercising? What kind of music do you like, whether you're running or lifting weights?
I like angry music.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I've gone a little bit more. What do you call it? EDM, electronic dance music, like
Okay.
some of the big DJs. But something between. But Fred again's probably not so heavy, but some of his stuff's pretty cool. But like heavier stuff, like I suppose Fisher. Oh no. Bloody Beetroot was on in the gym the other day. I'm over that now, but the heavier stuff like old school Korn, Metallica, that sort of stuff. It's just a release,
Yeah. I'm glad you went back to a couple of old bands, because they weren't words I was understanding, Wade.
I do like my music. Not everyone in the gym likes it though, unfortunately.
Yeah, no kidding.
No,
everyone, right?
I'll look after everyone with the music. It's okay.
Yeah. Jace, what do you listen to?
It's gonna sound boring, but a little bit of everything. It's got to be energetic. I can't listen to something slow or boring, or something that's low in mood. It needs to be up in mood. I like, you might appreciate this, Justin, I like AC/DC or Red Hot Chili Peppers, Guns N' Roses, Pearl Jam, any old rock, especially if I'm lifting weights. But even when I'm running, if it's something I would sing, then I'm enjoying it, whether I'm lifting weights or whether I'm out for a run. But what Wade was referring to something a little faster, a little bit more up tempo, like any sort of faster dance music, and from any genre really. I'm not really too fussy, but if it's something I get into and has good energy, then yeah, especially if it's an up tempo run like intervals, or if I'm trying to push myself and run hard.
I think my safest bet to try and cover everyone is there's so many cool remixes of songs everyone knows. There's some pretty lame ones as well, but if you look around on Spotify, there are some really cool jazz, I don't know, like redone songs with a really good beat, energetic, and people they know all the words, so that sort of ticks both boxes. So that's a fun one to sort of have a look around on Spotify for songs like that.
Justin, what are you listening to?
I can't stand music. I've had enough. Like I very much in the podcast book arena when it comes to having headphones in. When I'm running, I'll listen to a book. Like podcasts, actually, when I did the Sydney Marathon, I listened to podcasts the whole way around. Because the music in the gym, and it doesn't matter what it is now. It kind of just feels like noise to me, and it just kind of irritates me. So
you're officially old.
Yeah,
get off my lawn.
But at least I'm not listening to Metallica and Korn and Pearl Jam still.
That's when I'm here on my own at 5 a.m. Come on.
So yeah, I don't think that helps you at all, Jenny, in your question in terms of what but a little insight into where we're at in life.
Just rewind a second. What do you do when you really got to get your rage on? You're doing some hill sprints, right?
Yeah.
You got to get up that hill and you got to get up there fast. What are you doing here? Are you listening to?
I tell myself to get my ass up there as fast as I can.
And you're listening to someone talk about deep vein thrombosis, or the benefits of a high protein diet, or are you?
Yeah.
Or do you pull the earphones out? Do you just go au naturel?
No, and look, and I think a lot of it is where if I'm doing something hard, I'd suggest I don't even hear the podcast or the book. Like I actually miss out on that part of it because I'm now concentrating on the exercise. So it's just a bit of kind of background noise, and then you can't rewind a podcast anymore. I don't even know what you call it, but I'll go back and listen to the bit that I actually didn't hear. So I'm probably better off listening to nothing. So I used to listen to music while I ran, and I have a bit of a running playlist on Spotify myself, but I just got bored with it, and no, not anymore. So I'm a bit of an outlier. I don't listen to it. I can't stand music. Just
There's a lot of an interesting one. A lot of bodybuilders train in silence because they just want eliminate all distractions and just fully concentrate on what they're doing. If I've had a day of overstimulation and do a rare late session on my own, the silence is actually nice just for the contrast. So I've even in the car, sometimes I feel like I do a long drive and I've ran out of options of what I want to listen to, and the silence is sometimes you forget, like you don't, Justin. But sometimes you forget that that's an option. Just absorb the silence and the nothingness.
Yeah, driving into the gym, there's a certain point I turn everything off and just drive in silence. A couple of minutes, it's really good. And actually, it's the best time to think of ideas and stuff you want to do. Bit of clarity is great. Yeah.
How many questions didn't you get to today?
There's about 5.
Yep.
More to go. Some of them, there's a New Year's resolution one. There's a bit on core strength, but we'll probably cover off on it at another day. Bit of hydration there. Mobility. We'll get to them. I'm sorry, Mike. Who have we got? Jake, Sarah. We will get to your questions, guys. Even if I have to email you directly, we will get to them. But so we might wrap it up there, boys. I think that's a pretty good podcast.
Thank you for your questions. I reckon that's great. Well done, Justin. I
appreciate it. If you've listened to this and it's there's a chance it may have raised more questions than answers, please shoot them through. Write them in the comments. If you have stumbled across this, please subscribe to the podcast. We do it each week. We've got some really interesting guests coming up. Next week we might be one day late because we're recording a day late, but really looking forward to next week's podcast on the link between mental health and exercise. We have an expert coming on, so looking forward to that one. That is the AFM podcast for another week. Thanks a lot, guys.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Ta-da.